My name is Naomi Carter. And the same parents who threw me out at 18 were smiling across a courtroom table, pretending they still loved me. The day they thought I inherited my billionaire grandfather's entire empire. They thought I was weak, easy to control, still desperate for their approval. What they didn't know. My grandfather spent years preparing me for the exact moment they would try to steal everything. And before I tell you how my own parents tried to have me declared mentally unfit, just to take control of $3.8 billion, subscribe to the channel, because stories like this prove something painful. The people who call you family are sometimes the first people to treat you like property. I grew up inside a perfect-looking lie. Big house, private school, expensive dinners. From the outside, we looked like the kind of family people envied. Inside, everything was conditional. Love, approval, attention. Everything had to be earned. Especially from my father. My older brother Daniel understood that game perfectly. Confident, loud, ambitious. Even when he failed, my parents treated him like a future billionaire temporarily delayed. Meanwhile, I was invisible. I wasn't rebellious. I wasn't irresponsible. I was just different. I asked questions. I noticed things. And my parents hated that. At dinner, Daniel talked about business ideas he barely understood while my father nodded proudly like he was listening to a genius. Whenever I tried speaking about books or ideas I loved, my mother smiled politely and said, "That's nice, Naomi." That sentence ended every conversation. Then came the moment that changed everything. Daniel turned 17. A brand new BMW appeared in the driveway with a giant red bow on top. Photos. Laughter. Celebration. My father called it an investment in his future. 1 year later, I turned 18. No celebration. No gifts. No support. Just a conversation at the kitchen table that felt more like a business. Termination. You're an adult now, my mother said calmly. It's time you learn to stand on your own. No explanation why Daniel still received money while I was suddenly independent. That's when I realized something horrifying. Independence wasn't a value in my family. It was punishment. That night, I packed one suitcase. My parents watched silently from the hallway while I left the house. No tears. No hacks. No hesitation. When the front door closed behind me, I understood something I had been avoiding my entire life. I wasn't losing my family. I never truly had one. The only person who didn't treat me like a disappointment was my grandfather, William Carter. He never raised his voice, never bragged about his wealth, never used money to control people. Unlike my parents, he listened more than he spoke. After I got kicked out, I tried hiding it from him. I failed. One night he called me and simply said, "Come have dinner." That was it. No interrogación. No pity. When I arrived, he quietly placed food in front of me and waited. Eventually, I told him everything. The comparisons. The favoritism. The way Daniel was always treated like someone worth investing in while I was treated like a risk. I expected sympathy. Instead, my grandfather leaned back calmly and said, "So, they finally showed you who they really are." That sentence stayed with me for years. From that point on, he became my safe place. Sometimes I slept on his couch. Sometimes he handed me grocery money pretending it was no big deal. But he never made me feel weak. He used to tell me, "You notice things other people ignore. That scares controlling people." At the time, I didn't fully understand what he meant. Now I do. Years passed. I built my life slowly. No shortcuts. No family help. And through all of it, my grandfather watched quietly. Sometimes I'd catch him studying me carefully, almost like he was testing something. I didn't realize he was preparing for the future. Then one morning, everything changed. The lawyer called. My grandfather was gone. For days I felt numb. Not dramatic grief, just emptiness. Like the last safe place in my life had disappeared. 2 days later, I arrived for the will reading. And the moment I walked into that courtroom, I knew something was wrong. Because my parents looked happy, not grieving, excited. My mother immediately grabbed my hands like we were suddenly close again. "Naomi," she whispered warmly. We'll help you through this. Help me. The same people who abandoned me at 18 suddenly wanted to protect me. Daniel leaned back in his chair smirking like he had already won. Then the attorney started reading. Properties. Investments. Private holdings. Billions of dollars. I barely processed the numbers. Then suddenly, everything stopped. The attorney adjusted his glasses and said, the entirety of William Carter's estate, valued at approximately $3.8 billion, will transfer directly to Naomi Carter. The room froze. Then something terrifying happened. My parents smiled. My father folded his hands calmly and said, well, naturally we'll manage everything for you. Daniel laughed softly. This amount of money destroys people. My mother squeezed my arm. You're emotional, Naomi. You'll need protection. Protection. That word almost made me laugh. Because even after abandoning me, they still believed I belonged under their control. And the scariest part? They were already planning how to take it. I stayed quiet. The attorney hadn't finished reading yet. But they were too greedy to notice. Then came the next page. And everything changed. The attorney cleared his throat. There are additional provisions. My father frowned immediately. The attorney continued. In the event any family member attempts to interfere with Naomi Carter's authority over the estate. Daniel sat forward. My mother's hand slowly slid away from. When I read the words on those documents, I actually laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was predictable. The courtroom hearing felt colder than the will reading. My parents sat together pretending to look concerned while their attorney described me as emotionally vulnerable and financially incapable. They weren't trying to help me. They were trying to erase me. Then my attorney stood up, and everything collapsed. Emails, text messages, bank inquiries, private conversations. Every attempt they made to secretly access my inheritance. Exposed point one by one. Then my attorney held up my grandfather's will and said, William Carter predicted this exact behavior. The judge looked directly at my parents and said the sentence that ended everything. This court will not rewrite a man's legacy simply because his family dislikes his decision. Petition denied. Just like that, their entire plan died. My mother cried. My father looked completely broken. Daniel stared at me like he didn't even recognize me anymore. Because for the first time, their control didn't work. The news spread fast afterward. My parents lost business connections. Invitations disappeared. People started whispering, not about me, about them. About the parents who tried stealing from their own daughter. Daniel collapsed fastest. Without my parents protecting him, he had nothing underneath the confidence. Point one afternoon. He cornered me outside a cafe and hissed, You think you're better than us now? I looked him directly in the eyes, and calmly answered, No, I just stopped believing I was worse. He had no response to that. Months later, I drove past my childhood home for the first time since the court battle ended. The house looked smaller. The paint was peeling. The illusion was finally dying. And strangely, I felt nothing. No anger. No sadness. Just distance. People think inheriting billions changes your life. But honestly, the money the real gift. The real gift was finally understanding this. I was never hard to love. They were just incapable of loving anyone they couldn't control. And as that house disappeared behind me, I realized something for the first time in my entire life. I wasn't leaving home anymore. I was finally moving forward.